Welcome back to the Yanzhou campaign. Last time we took out a Cao army in our territory in a nice messy battle. Then we went for a gigantic siege drawout at Liu Bei's capital and utterly failed, losing 2/3 of our army on this front, so now we're on the defensive there. We then took out another Cao army that invaded our territory pretty resoundingly, giving us now the opportunity to counterattack. First though, we're going to do something annoying against the Liu clan. I noticed that Chenliu up here in the top right of their domain isn't that heavily defended, so I could send a small force out to besiege them, and inside is none other than Guan Yu, one of the other great heroes of the era. Langya's still got a decent number of troops in it in case it's attacked, so overall that looks pretty good. Now it's the AI's turn, and the Cao clan are moving lots of men away from Chenliu, which is perfect because Zhang Liao happens to be standing nearby with an unoccupied army, so our counterattack is now definitely on the cards. The Liu clan are going to stop us doing this siege at Chengyang, unfortunately. They come over with some reinforcements, and this battle isn't abysmal, but it's not really worth fighting since I was just here for the lols anyway. There is a chance there that we could kill Guan Yu, which could make it worth sacrificing our army just to do it, but we're not going to. Curiously, they then commit another army to go after poor Hao Meng up there, so while he's got the heat on him, it does mean the rest of the front line is now less guarded than usual, so I can now consider making a potential counterattack on the Liu front as well. As for Hao Meng, I decided to escape the pursuers by going into the Qingzhou territories, but they now dislike me because I'm trespassing. What I was hoping is that the Liu clan wouldn't dare trespass against them, and I will, thus saving my army. But if we're accidentally getting Qingzhou to declare war on us through this method, it's certainly not going to be worth it. Only time will tell. I reinforced Langya, and now we'll just leave the situation up there to see what happens. I looked into making a counterattack further south, and found that I could make an army out of the garrisons of Xiaopei and Pengcheng, especially because I've recruited a load of new units now, so we do have a decent force here. Moving out means we've got pretty much nothing defensively, but maybe the Liu clan aren't going to attack us in that area anyway. Now for Zhang Liao and our push against the Cao clan. We can go right to Chenliu and start a serious siege. They've got a half stack inside, so breaking into the city won't necessarily be easy, but at least we can heavily reinforce this position. We've got a new army from Jiying, or an army that's built of bits of other armies, I think, plus a few new troops, and troops who came up from Chao, who were encamped on the border, who can now go to sit on Zhang Liao's left wing. There we go, a pretty substantial 2-stack-ish army pushing into Cao territory. Also in this turn, I started doing some rather useful diplomacy. One thing I did is negotiate with the Chen faction. I'm trying to get an alliance with them here because these are the guys who are on our southern border, our southwestern border. They're directly south of Chenliu, I think. And we are able to get this alliance right here, so that's perfect. Now we've slightly reduced the probability of opening up yet another front in this war. You can see them down here, they are the pink faction. After that I negotiated with Huainan, who are the dark red faction to the east of Chen, and so also to our south/southeast. So those are two pretty useful alliances. Now all of our southern border is theoretically secure, and if we can convince Huainan to attack Liu Bei, he'll go right down because they're really strong. They've got some rich cities down there. With all that set up, it's time to move on. The Cao clan sends a big army over to Chenliu, but it doesn't make an attack. They're just getting into position to reinforce if we go for a siege assault. The Liu clan decide to call off the pursuit on Hao Meng, but because they're moving back down towards Shapi, they may end up actually being able to counter my move towards Jiangchun over to the west. We'll have to see. As for Hao Meng, I thought I can surely sneak back to my territory now. But because of the way the Qingzhou armies are currently positioned, I can't do it right now. I was going to hire some mercenaries, but it says there that I've just about got all the units I can have in terms of upkeep. But I actually do have some income to spare. It's just that that balance sheet was taking into account things I'd queued up earlier. Anyway, long story short, Hao Meng is trapped up there for now because I didn't want to walk around more in the enemy's territory, or in our neutral partner's territory, and cause them to become an ally. Meanwhile, I started this siege at Jiangchun, But I realised we don't actually need to do a siege here. Since we have a ballista in our army, we can do a siege assault immediately, and as long as we can open a gate, we should be able to bust in and take out the relatively small army inside. So it all comes down to this. We've got our 2 giant ballista things here, and we fire away at the enemy's gates. Because it's a large town, they do have some serious walls, so it's going to take a long time to bring down those gates. And there's nothing we can do, really, to influence this. It's down to the RNG of whether the shots hit the gates or not. Here we are some time later, and it's getting towards the point when the gates are going to be destroyed, but we're also about to run out of bolts. And unfortunately, we do run out before we destroy the gate, and we technically lose the battle. We lost 1 guy because I was trying to move the ballista closer to the wall to be more accurate, and accidentally went into tower range at one point. This counts as losing the fight, so our siege is cancelled and we can't even make regular siege equipment. Overall then, that attack there's gone pretty badly. Now back to Chenliu. This army that's come to reinforce is pretty decent. They've got loads of good units and it's a full stack. What I thought we could do here is what I suppose you could call the reverse siege drawout. We can just attack the city anyway with no intention of actually going inside the city. The enemy's first army will just sit behind the walls, and we can then deploy along the bottom edge of the map and just focus down the second army to try and kill it. So we'll be effectively giving ourselves a field battle where we have a bit of advanced preparation and the city can just sit in the background and watch. I plop our army right down next to where the enemy are coming onto the field, and the battle starts instantly. Although it became quickly clear as well that this doesn't confer upon me any great advantage like I thought I somehow might be getting here, especially because my army has loads of archers, and a fight where we suddenly are at close proximity to the enemy isn't going to suit a whole load of archers. So we only get a couple of volleys off before suddenly we're being swarmed all over the place, and the fact that the enemy now have the line protecting their rear flank means we can't do anything particularly fancy with our cavalry either. Our archers have a mixed time with their skirmishing, not necessarily skirmishing in very good directions, but they don't get absolutely annihilated like they often do, so that was good. Now a nice, super messy, super chaotic fight can start, where it's just going to be everything ploughing into our men. This was much less of an ambush than I thought it would be, catching the enemy on the edge here. I was able to get some heavy cav in behind the enemy's army just along the edge of the map. But a lot of the engagements we're seeing right now aren't very good, so we're losing men rapidly. I used Zhang special ability. I was going to try and break through the centre, but realised I need him to come out of that central melee and go onto our right, because things are particularly bad there. His arrival does clear things up. He was able to take out a load of light cav and make sure our right flank remained stable after the infantry got pretty much taken down. On the left, we've got more heavy cav fighting the enemy's heavy cav in a not especially advantageous engagement. But at least what remains of the centre and left is now starting to look okay, and our definitive archer advantage means we can take the enemy down even if we lose the melee just because we have so many men left over at this point. But we were able to get some cav behind the enemy's remaining melee inf and get rid of them. Now just need to finish off the enemy's few archers and we'll have this battle. One nice thing is that the enemy's melee infantry were routing towards the city, so they routed through my archer line and lost a load of extra men as they went. So I suppose that was one positive aspect to this particular battle setup. So after a while we've taken out everything in this area, but it's not really going to help us, I must say. You can see in the very bottom right we're capturing a lot of routing enemies. And the central part of this plan is that we don't go on to attack the city after this. I'm sure the Medieval 2 experts out there already saw this gigantic flaw in the plan. If we withdraw our work being done, we have to give the captives back, which means the work we did will be lessened. In terms of actually attacking the city, I thought we might be able to sneak in. Because we have so many archers, I could try and capture the wall and then shoot from the wall at all of the enemy's cav and heavy infantry down on the victory point. But as I got close to my siege equipment to try and start this, the enemy put archers on the walls and the towers activated, and I ended up saying, well, let's go ahead with the original plan. Let's just leave the map. This took a very long time because I had to leave off the right side of the map. Curiously, at the end, once my force was really weak, the enemy did sally out and come after us. That's some pretty good AI. I assume they would just sit in the middle of the city and not bother analysing what I was doing until I went inside. So it's an utter defeat, which then quickly gets changed to a close defeat. That's a little bit better. In terms of numbers, at first it looked like we lost about 1,400 and killed about 2,000, but because we have to give captives back, and because the enemy will get casualties healed because they technically won, in the end both sides lost about the same amount of men, and we no longer have the city under siege, so our equipment is destroyed. Not a disaster or anything, but another chapter in our recent history of failed siege attack semi-exploit battles. We will still have to face this army again because there's loads of stuff left over. A decisive battle is yet to be fought, and now it's going to be the Cao clan with the initiative to potentially decide what that battle is. They don't just pile everything on us right away, so that's a good start. Then what appears to happen is they take their damaged army back to their capital at Xuchang and come over with a fresh army to engage us. That's actually a pretty good move from the AI, if it was deliberate, that is. Although in a bad move, the forces left at Chenliu have now just sat outside the town, not taking part in this battle or doing anything really. So it's not such a bad fight we're facing. Their army's pretty good, but we've still got something that resembles a good army to face them with. Now the terrain was a little bit annoying in this fight. You can see I've deployed right on top of a hill, which means my archers can't really see the enemy and are just pretending to fire to try and please me, I suppose. I should have deployed further down the hill to fight the enemy with a proper hill advantage, but I wanted to stay close to where my reinforcements were coming onto the map, since I had 4 units that I needed to use in my battle line, my very depleted battle line with pretty much no melee infantry. Unfortunately, they never even made it to my army because the enemy rushed forward with some cav, and there my crossbowmen weren't interested in getting out of the way. I was far too late on the order, and then there's a big delay before anything happens. Tried to do some spam to get them out of that melee, but for the most part they weren't all that interested in leaving. Luckily I could pile in with heavy cav, and that will allow us to turn their light cav around and eventually win that melee. Meanwhile, my archers over in the main army have just achieved nothing and now need to pull back behind our tiny line of melee infantry, which will now have to hold back the enemy without the hill advantage that I could have given them. Overall, I think I shouldn't have focused on trying to stay close to our reinforcements. It's going to be up to the cav to win this battle, and we do have the cavalry advantage now. All they need to do is plough into all of the enemy's archers on the hillside before they come up and start shooting at us. But a few of the enemy's melee infantry units did start chasing them around, so it now came down to a lot of micro, trying not to get our cavalry engaged with spears, which sometimes is easier said than done, especially because, as usual, I'm refusing to pause things for the micro. We do need to also remember to send some cavalry to help with the melee fight, because our men are getting killed once again, and at this point we've got virtually nothing left when it comes to melee infantry. I'm going to try and get Zhang Liao here to dive in on this big block of enemy swords, but there's both the delay in him actually doing it and the short distance to take into account, meaning a cavalry charge is not on the cards. They just sort of sidle over after a while and start hacking. Using his special ability, which presumably makes him better in melee, might have helped out there. Finally, everything was routing, and it just came down to chasing all the enemy's archers off with our load of cav. Got a nice juicy charge on those crossbowmen there, just wiping out the whole unit really quickly. The battle wasn't over because some of the fleeing units are actually just skirmishing archers, so I had to very slowly go around and actually get them all into melee and convince them to leave, which took a while because our cavalry are getting tired at this point, so we'll skip over that, and eventually we got it. The result wasn't that bad, but our losses being concentrated among our melee troops mean this army is now functionally useless. It needs to be refit with troops from other armies to actually do anything at this point. We execute the captives, and that's the whole enemy army brought down. Now we're just looking at Chenliu and wondering what will be left after this turn, and in particular, will a siege draw-out be possible? The answer there was yes. They left an army standing outside it, and because the Liu clan didn't do anything, we come right back to this issue. They've got reinforcements on the way, but they're not in range to support right now, so if we attack this army under Captain Cao Ling, just a half stack, we can do a classic siege draw-out, an exploit that we know actually works. First I had to rearrange the armies. Basically I need to pour my reinforcement troops into the main force, so we've got a usable assault army ready. Finally, we get that situation and we trigger this battle. It's just what we need. Chenliu, one of the great strategists of the time, will be leading the garrison out of the city, and now we'll have a battle where we focus on killing those guys and hopefully kill the enemy's first army at the same time, since that would help. As the usual skirmish phase starts here, I wanted to note one of Medieval 2's nice features, and you can see it here. The archers who have armour upgrades look visibly more armoured than the archers who don't. A nice feature that often gets brought up as something the series might want to bring back one day. Anyway, as for the skirmishing phase, things are looking good. The enemy attacked with horse archers from the front, and us having a big line of archers is the perfect counter to that, so those horse archers did poorly. As for their regular archers and crossbowmen advancing towards us, they don't have the numbers and the crossbowmen don't have the range, plus we're uphill, which makes that even worse. Their crossbowmen are cut down as they form up, and just generally things are fine. Until of course they go for their charge. I order our archers to run away. A lot of them do actually run away, but crucially the ones who are standing right in the path of the enemy charge don't, for unknown reasons, and they just take it full on. So that's pretty bad. Elsewhere the charges don't slam through our archer line, so it looks better. Time for our cav to start moving on the flanks and envelop this enemy army. Chenliu charged ahead of the rest of the reinforcement army and arrived just as the battle started, just in time to see the captain in charge of this army get taken down against our spearmen. I'm going to be focusing down Chenliu, since killing him will be a great result even if we don't achieve the successful siege draw-out exploit. So we charge right down the hill into his missile cav unit, a nice juicy target. Meanwhile we're hacking through some nearby archers with more cav, and we'll soon be attacking him from 3 sides there, even getting spearmen into the mix. The actual fight with the enemy's first set of melee infantry goes well. A couple of the units rout, and other ones will be routed soon as we surround and pound them. The reinforcements are now arriving, and we don't want to be too hasty about diving in on them. We want to draw them in and make sure we can surround them, so that if they rout, we're in a good position to attack them as they leave. We do have a lot of cavalry in our army in this battle, so really it's not too much of a risk. They make sure the archers are constantly running away and go and kill them, more importantly. Chenliu is killed back at the site of the original battle. That's going to free up a lot of troops to come and finish off the melee units from the reinforcement army. They're currently engaging in a big messy blob with my own melee units in the centre. Once this is all sorted out, we're pretty much on track for victory. Now the question is, can we get the exact victory that we need? Need to make sure we kill as many fleeing enemies as we can. There go the melee troops, and we have successfully surrounded them. Our cavalry are in the path that the enemy need to take to retreat, which is ideal. I'll skip over this part since it's just me going here and there and killing as much as I can. Eventually, here's the end of the battle. A good result in general, and more importantly, we killed every single man from the Chenliu garrison, so we are going to successfully do the exploit. We need to execute everything. Both of the 2 armies that took part in the fight are deleted, meaning the field is open and the city is open. For some reason I used my backup army to capture the city here. I think originally I was planning to move on with Zhang Liao and attack that next army over to the west, but after considering things for a while, I decided to not do anything like that. We're going to consolidate our position and try and put our best foot forward in Chenliu, so have our best army there, and then move out all the damaged units to go back towards Jiying, just to the north, where they can refit, get more units from our capital, and just generally prepare for another attack in the future. We lost nearly a full army's worth of troops on the campaign for Chenliu, which is substantial in these older games because losing troops matters much more because they're actual people. We do have a limited population to draw from. I thought after all this the Cao clan might now want peace because we've got them on the back foot, but not enough. They don't accept it. They've got Cao Ren as their leader, who is like a max level general there, or he is a max level general, so need to watch out for him. As for Hao Meng, if you were wondering how he's doing, he's still trapped up there. He's trapped even more than he was before, because Qingzhou have completely garrisoned the border. No escape for him yet. As for the situation with the Liu attack, I decided to go for it again, even though Zhang Chun's now been heavily reinforced and has a full army inside it. Actually attacking this city would probably require more than the one army I've got besieging things, because it will be a bloodbath, but I'm still going to set the siege up and just see what happens. We could even wait things out and try to starve the enemy army to death, although that would take a long time, and generally it's not the optimal strategy to go for. Time to see how the enemy will react. The Cao clan really don't do anything at all, which is perfect, and the Liu clan do nothing for a while, but eventually they do bring over their big army under Zhou Sang to start something down here at Changchun. Everything coming in means the enemy has a big army to use, but curiously they use a night attack here, which kind of screws them over. The night attack rules appear to be a little bit different to how they work in the later games. It's not that only the first two armies on either side can fight. It's more like any army that doesn't know how to participate in night attacks can't, which in this case means the enemy lose 2,000 men of potential reinforcements, and we don't, because the backup army that I moved to stand behind Gao Shun, Luan, one of our family members, apparently does know about night attacks. That aside, I'm going to not fight the battle, even if the enemy are screwing themselves over, because it's not a very good one and we can look for something better. No battle takes place, giving us the initiative to do something in our turn. I thought we might actually be able to get a siege draw out here, but unfortunately we can't, because the army I'd have to attack, that one up and left of the city, would then draw in the big army to the battle, and we'd actually get the really hard scenario that we're trying to avoid here. After considering the situation for a while, I decided to do nothing. I pulled our main force back to this fort in our border and then hid our reinforcements nearby. We want the enemy to disperse. We don't want to be attacking this point in the Liu clan's territory because it's the most heavily defended one, so we'll just wait for them to go away and try and get an easier battle. Hao Meng still trapped. It looks like he's not getting out of there anytime soon. Perhaps the drama with Hao Meng will one day be resolved. Check in with the next part.